far as bourbon goes, it was a peaceful night. We only had 13 minutes left before our shift ended, and everything changed at 3:17.
Tonight, we are marking the one-year anniversary of a tragic terror attack that killed 14 people and injured dozens more.
I thought that a year later I'd be healed fully.
Let's go, back!
I'm still in pain. You know, I have a hole in my thigh, a big hole. It's numb, you know, dead tissues.
It's been really rough. The holidays without her. It's a day-by-day thing for us.
People who were celebrating New Year's Eve on a street known worldwide, Bourbon Street, a place where millions of fond memories have been made, but that night the revelers became targets for a man with evil intentions. And today, a memorial floats in the breeze over Bourbon Street with flags to honor the victims of the New Year's terror attack, forming a second line in the sky.
And on Bourbon Street below, many changes have been made to security, but many people are calling for better protections to keep people safe. Thanks for joining us for this special look back at the Bourbon Street attack 1 year later. I'm Katie Moore.
And I'm Sharice Gibson. Many of those survivors of the attack are still fighting to heal, some from injuries that changed their lives forever.
Yeah, one of them was a man from the Pittsburgh area. He came to New Orleans for the first time to celebrate a new year, but instead he became trapped at the center of the chaos, unable to run, unable to hide, and facing weeks in a hospital bed. Tonight, he's sharing what he remembers. WWL Louisiana anchor Devin Bartolotta has his story.
Jeremy Sensky heard the whirring of the electric F-150.
Like all I heard was wee, like this weird noise.
But never saw it barreling right toward him.
And everybody around me was like, what's that noise? What's that noise? And then bam.
Jeremy says he remembers every moment of that night.
I don't think the screaming and the blood everywhere. I don't think I'll ever forget any of that. And I do think about it a lot when I'm laying in bed.
He was one of the last of dozens of people hit by a terrorist in a pickup truck on Bourbon Street during a night out to celebrate the new year. Actually, we found him in this photo, caught by the Earth Cam, enjoying the nightlife just about an hour before life changed.
I literally remember flying through the air and hitting the ground. And the first thing I saw looking over was a truck stopping and it hit a crane right beside me.
We've never introduced you to Jeremy before, but you have likely seen his wheelchair. It's in nearly every photo of the truck used to destroy so many lives on New Year's Day. Jeremy uses a wheelchair because of the first collision that altered the course of his life.
It was in 1999, and I was actually on my way home from a Christmas party, and my friend was drinking, and he smashed the truck, and I hit the windshield and broke my neck in a C5-6. And that took 90 days. In a hospital rehab, and I had to relearn my whole life.
In only his 20s, a wheelchair became a part of everyday life. He could have never known that almost 25 years later, in a second major trauma, that very chair might have saved others' lives.
But not a lot of people know that I'm the one that basically stopped the truck. Because me and my wheelchair, we weigh about 550 pounds between us. That truck stopped where I was at. And I do believe the people were saved.
After Jeremy was hit and thrown onto his face, he could only watch and listen to the screams and the gunfire. He had broken almost every major bone in both of his legs, describing them as a puddle. His daughter, Heaven, spoke to CBS News after the attack.
He was 5 feet from the truck. He was watching the shootout from the ground.
1 year later, Jeremy is thankful to be alive, but still healing his shattered legs and dependent on expensive medication. And while he's spending New Year's Eve in Florida, he one day wants to return to New Orleans and conquer the street where he skirted death a second time.
I keep telling my wife eventually that we have to go there and just go back down that street just to go down the street and get to the end of it without being ran over by a truck.
Devin Bartolotta, WWL Louisiana.
As the medical bills have piled up, Jeremy has an attorney who's seeking damages for the attack.
Well, Jeremy says he believes the city failed him and other victims who should have been protected.
On New Year's Day, law enforcement officers, you remember, from all over Louisiana, from a huge number of agencies, were stationed around the French Quarter to supplement the NOPD's dwindled ranks. The city's most famous street was crawling with cops of all kinds, including Louisiana probation and parole officers. Now, 6 of them stood outside the Bourbon House that morning. They helped pull the suspect out of his truck after he crashed, and what they saw that day will haunt them forever. I sat down with 4 out of 6 to hear their stories.
It was a typical night.
Shortly after midnight, my daughter asked me what the crowd looked like, so I sent her a picture of Bourbon Street, and it was just from wall to wall. There were people all the way down Bourbon Street.
Having to do, security and work detail, on Bourbon, drunk people, intoxicated people, tourists. But then everything had kind of died down, and it was cold.
The crowd, thank goodness, was thinning out as the time wound down. It started to get smaller and smaller and smaller.
As far as Bourbon goes, it was a peaceful night.
When you guys signed up to be probation and parole agents, I can't imagine you ever in a million years thought you would be basically in what I'm assuming looked like a war zone in downtown New Orleans. Did you ever think that you would experience anything like this?
Absolutely not.
We only had 13 minutes left before our shift ended, and everything changed at 3:17.
We were right outside of Hard Rock Cafe, standing on the street corner. We're leaned up against a wall, catching our breath from just dealing with an intoxicated individual that we brought back to their hotel room. Look down the street toward Canal Street, and I see headlights turn on Bourbon Street.
6 probation and parole agents, members of their special response team, were working a detail on New Year's Eve in the 100 block of Bourbon Street.
I'm Brandon Bordeaux.
My name's Josh Smith.
Chris Sagan. My name's Colin Harrison.
Chris Howell. And David Balfance.
They couldn't be with us when we sat down for an interview about the Bourbon Street Terror Attack a few weeks ago.
We have a 100% all hands on deck.
December 30th, 2024, New Orleans Police Chief Ann Kirkpatrick announced every single cop would be working, with an additional 300 officers from other agencies called in. The probation and parole team was in that number.
We're just assuming it's a drunk person turning on Bourbon Street.
What was your aha moment that told you this isn't just a drunk person driving down Bourbon?
It was clear pretty quickly. So like Josh said, he made the first comment, oh, look at this guy, he's drunk, and within probably 30 feet of us, the first person was struck.
He doesn't slow down. He hits the gas and he starts going faster. And as he travels down the street, you're still hearing him make contact with individuals. At that point, you realize that it's on purpose, that he is intentionally killing people.
There was the flag affixed to the back of the truck.
It was an ISIS flag. They would later learn that 42-year-old Shamsuddin Jabbar, a U.S. Army veteran inspired by the Islamic terror organization, was the man driving, intentionally killing as many as he could.
So this was worse than anything that you saw when you were serving in the military?
Absolutely.
We start running. And the first thing we see when we run past that guardrail is the first individual that we come across that's deceased. And she's laying on the ground and her eyes are fixed.
From where we were to pursuing the vehicle seemed like an eternity.
Yeah.
So it only ended up being 2 blocks, I think, but it felt like we covered a mile.
Yeah.
So time stood still.
Every injured person crying, every dead person laying on the ground, you have to run down the street past all of that. They open fire at the guy. I believe he comes out with a gun and starts to shoot them. 3 of us move to the right and duck off into a daiquiri shop. Colin and Chris move to the left side. They join up with two or three NOPD officers. They move to the vehicle and drag the assailant out of the truck, lay him on the ground. I believe he takes his last breath while they're right there.
14 people were killed. An Alabama freshman, an aspiring nurse, a former college football player. Dozens more were hurt.
If NOPD hadn't engaged him as quickly as they did and neutralized him, gosh, I can't fathom how many more casualties there would have been. Turning back and seeing, the result of the truck moving down Bourbon Street was gut-wrenching.
I watched a nurse that was on the street that night. She was just there to celebrate. I watched her attempt to do CPR on a man that was dying, and you could tell that he was crushed by the truck, and she was crying.
You look at someone on the ground, it's like I'm a brother, I'm an uncle, I'm a father. You're looking at him and you're thinking, his family doesn't know yet.
Unfortunately, in New Orleans, we've seen too much of pain and suffering, and the one thing that always manages to surface is what incredible humans we have there, you all included. Have you guys heard from any of the victims since this happened?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah?
Yeah.
What did you hear? Tell me about it.
I think I'll keep that private, if that's okay. I've never felt more pride to be a member of this community than I did that night. Everyone acted admirably, not just the people here. I'm proud of these guys in our department, but like I said again, NOPD, they deserve so much credit. Wildlife and Fisheries, all the agencies that were there. It was a proud moment.
Are you guys going to do it again?
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Are you really?
We'll be there next week. Yes, ma'am.
Without hesitation, a resounding yes. They are back down here today. These guys are members of the same team who raced to help all of those people who were hurt in that massive pileup on I-55 in the super fog a few years ago. They're heroes without hesitation. We asked the NOPD's first responders to do an interview with us for this story as well, but they declined. As you heard from the officers, they deserve so much credit as well for their incredibly brave actions a year ago today. So how did the attack impact French Quarter businesses? It depends on who you ask.
Well, leaders looking at the big picture tell us they're not seeing any significant drop, but when we check with some small businesses and restaurant owners, they had a different take, telling us the downturn has been painfully obvious.
I saw they were shooting in front of my shop, and I'm saying, what the hell is going on?
For 28 years, Armando Ortiz has owned the Crescent City cigar shop near the corner of Bourbon and Orleans, one of the most recognizable corners in the French Quarter. 1 year ago, that corner became the center of chaos.
I found out there was a terrorist attack, and they found one of the IEDs in front of the shop. They detonated that. I came to the shop, everything was shut down out here, completely shut down.
The attack shook New Orleans to its core, turning the city's busiest tourist corridor into a crime scene.
I mean, for me, that's when business started, crashing on us.
Business and restaurant owners who didn't want to speak on camera told me in the few weeks that followed, they saw a noticeable slowdown. Fewer tourists, shorter business hours, and lingering fear. One business owner says customer counts dropped after the attack, with some employees hesitant to return to work because of safety concerns.
How has business changed for you in particular this year?
I mean, it took a major drop. I mean, I would look out there, there's no one walking around. Normally I would stay here till 8 o'clock. I start leaving at 5 o'clock. My business this year was off close to, I didn't check the numbers completely, but if I had to guess, we're off about 35–40%.
Ortiz says even major events like the Sugar Bowl and Super Bowl didn't bring relief.
The terrorist attack was a major part of it, because when something happens in New Orleans or in the French Quarter per se, we make national news. I mean, everyone that comes through here, a lot of customers ask me, is this safe?
But according to city leaders, the broader economic picture tells a different story.
There really hasn't been any significant impact in any of the metrics that we track.
Seth Knudsen of the Downtown Development District says downtown retail vacancy rates remain consistent with last year, and they see no direct link between the terror attack and long-term economic decline.
Vacancy rates are pretty similar to where they were a year ago, both in the Canal Street corridor. and downtown. Based on the information we've been given, there isn't any direct relation between those retail changes and restaurant changes and the terrorist attack specifically.
Knudsen also points to increased safety measures, including private security patrols, public safety rangers, off-duty NOPD detail, and expanded sanitation services, all aimed at restoring confidence downtown.
I think the perception of downtown and maybe the city as a whole as well is that it's a more dangerous place than sort of the data we have support at this point, and yet the public perception has not caught up maybe to what the data is telling us as of yet.
And then we had the snowstorm.
At New Orleans & Company, tourism leaders say the attack didn't stop the city from moving forward.
We kicked off 2025 on a horribly tragic note. What sustained us in those early days was this outpouring of support from all over the world.
Scholes says travelers, convention planners, and even competing cities send messages of solidarity, reinforcing that New Orleans, despite the attack, remained a destination. For Armando, though, statistics don't capture the personal toll.
We have 9/11, we have Katrina, we have the oil spills, we have a couple of other hurricanes, we had COVID. Even COVID didn't scare me. COVID did not scare me. This scares me. What's happening this year scares me a lot.
He says while the city is known for resilience and continues to push forward, small businesses like his struggle to catch up.
If you were to talk to the Tourism Bureau or someone else, they would go, well, business is fine. It's
no,
going
they're
great.
getting their numbers. They're not talking to small businesses like us.
Right.
They're not. I mean, we've lost a lot of business here.
Well, victims' families say 1 year later they are still waiting for permanent security changes on Bourbon Street. Now, the big question that we have here, will Bourbon Street become a pedestrian mall as recommended last year in a security assessment?
That was the #1 recommendation, and that conversation about what to do appears stuck, waiting for Mayor-elect Helena Moreno and a new city council to take office. WWL Louisiana anchor Brandon Walker takes a closer look at what's on the table and what already has changed on Bourbon.
We're leaning in, we will be relentless, and we will do everything that it takes to render real justice.
Look back and figure out what gaps were there.
We know that we could have done it differently.
Do they make a decision for permanent closure? Or do they make a decision for something less than permanent disclosure?
We actually like to see them implement it so that the preventative measures are taken.
On Bourbon Street, a vine of 800 prayer flags fly in memoriam. The tribute, albeit temporary, its display shows the city's vow never to forget. On the ground, barriers, they too short-term, also mark where the conversation stands over what to do 1 year later.
The City Council is clearly trying to determine those security gaps that existed prior to the attack.
1 week after the attack last New Year's Day, city leaders questioned not only how to bolster security on Bourbon, they also asked what happened to safeguards already in place but not fully operational that morning. From bollards first installed in 2017 to sidewalk barriers and a hydraulic road blocking gate. The question then, and in many ways now, how should New Orleans best respond? Superintendent Ann Kirkpatrick last January before the council.
He did agree that he would come forward and serve not only as my expert on how to hard target our city, but he is here to serve all of us.
He is Bill Bratton, former commissioner of the New York City Police Department. The New Orleans Police and Justice Foundation hired the risk and security expert to recommend changes. Melanie Talia is president and CEO.
We do know that there was a vehicle blocking the foot of Bourbon Street, but as it turned out, there was a space just big enough for a truck to take advantage of, and he did.
Bratton's answer? The 43-page Teneo report released last April. By far, the report's biggest recommendation, banning vehicles along the first 8 blocks of Bourbon Street to prevent future terror attacks.
We have to strike that balance between the people who live there, the people who work there, the people who have businesses there, with public safety on a larger scale.
The report made other recommendations. Permanent seer designation for Mardi Gras, intelligence improvements within the NOPD, and hiring more boots on the ground.
We in OPD have already started to implement many of their recommendations that they pointed out along the way. We did not wait.
We reached out to the NOPD for an updated list of what they say has been implemented. A spokesperson told us that there is not a list. So for answers, we had to go back to Superintendent Kirkpatrick's press conference from April on the Teneo report's findings.
A couple of things. You saw some of the barriers that we have now gone out to rent right now until the city again makes some decisions on the types of barriers they want.
A David Hammer investigation last September showed how easy it is for those barriers to be pushed out of the way because they're not bolted to the ground.
What we've been using is what I call it's a temporary solution to a permanent problem.
NOPD 8th District Commander Captain Samuel Palumbo has a solution. 18 permanent swing gates to be installed along Bourbon from Canal to St. Anne Streets. The price tag, $1.3 million.
What the permanent gates do for us is it makes it a much easier operation. It takes it down from, so right now you have 33 barriers. That brings it down to 18, a single gate at each side of each intersection.
Whether Captain Palumbo's pitch is viable is yet to be taken up by the City Council. Also, city leaders have yet to make a formal decision on whether to permanently ban vehicles here along Bourbon Street. At the moment, that conversation at the feet of Mayor-elect Helena Moreno and the new City Council set to take office in less than 2 weeks.
I have not felt much of an appetite for a permanent closure to Bourbon Street. I haven't heard that from the residents. I haven't heard it from the business owners. I haven't heard it from the employees.
We're lagging, Brandon. We're lagging behind.
Melanie Talia says the city needs answers. 1 year later, 14 people killed, 50 others injured. What to do still hangs in the balance. And its backdrop, those chilling words, all hope remain true. Never again.
It's a conversation that seems to have been ongoing for almost 365 days now and continues, and it looks like it's a conversation that's going to take us into 2026.
Is it moving too slowly?
Public safety should not be victimized by political pace.
Is the political pace moving it too slowly?
We are not meaningfully safer today than we were a year ago. So moving too slowly might be a good characterization.
That was Brandon Walker again reporting some stark words there. And in the critical hours that followed that terror attack, investigators, they worked to secure the scene and figure out if anyone else was involved.
Cameras in the French Quarter helped answer those questions. Leah McNeil shows us how that high-tech surveillance system was put to a critical test.
Day to day, pretty crazy.
Brian Lagarde sees everything.
We have over 5,000 cameras around the city of New Orleans.
As the executive director of Project NOLA crime camera program, he is literally the eyes in the sky.
A lot of our work here is looking for wanted subjects. We focus on New Orleans, but we do it all over the country.
Those eyes have seen it all.
A lot of our time is spent looking at helping to dismantle gangs. We're looking at a lot of hand-to-hand drug transactions, illegal carrying of firearms.
But what he witnessed in the first few hours of 2025.
We saw it, what was going on our screens. And as you know, it was horrific.
In October and November of 2024, Shamsu Jin Jabbar took 2 trips to New Orleans. This is video he took using meta glasses, riding a bike through the French Quarter. Weeks later, on December 30th, Jabbar rented a truck. The next day, he drove from his home in Houston, Texas to New Orleans. By 10 p.m. New Year's Eve, Jabbar checked into an Airbnb on Mandeville Street. At 1:53 a.m. and again at 2:20 a.m., New Year's Day, Jabbar is seen on video dropping off 2 coolers, one at Bourbon and St. Peter, the other on Bourbon and Toulouse. At 3 a.m., he was back in his truck. By 3:17, he was driving up Canal, making a right turn on Bourbon.
It began with a phone call.
I need EMS at Canal and Bourbon now.
And it was one of the 8 district officers that we work very closely with, and she said that she was standing on Bourbon Street surrounded by bodies. there was just a terrorist attack.
After 8 seconds of gunfire within OPD, he was shot and killed.
There were people on the ground that never had the opportunity to ever get back up. There was lots of injured people on the grounds. It was terrible. 2.5
blocks in 37 seconds, killed 14 and left dozens of others injured.
Yeah, once the initial surprise wore off, they just immediately started helping others. Everybody had to power through it and do what needed to be done.
On scene and behind a computer screen.
Originally, no one wanted to assume it was just one bad actor. So we were using clothing recognition, facial recognition, license plate recognition. Things then got even more unusual a couple of hours in when the first explosive device was found.
The 2 coolers placed along Bourbon turned out to be homemade explosives, with the fire to follow at Jabbar's Airbnb.
Of course, it all led to the single conclusion that everybody knows now is there was one terrorist.
These eyes have seen what no one should. Now, a year later, Lagarde continues his work as the watchful eye in the sky.
About 2 weeks ago, Lagarde said cameras on Bourbon Street were updated to immediately alert police if a vehicle is driving on Bourbon when it is only supposed to be open to pedestrians. That change is aimed at protecting everyday crowds when we typically see less law enforcement compared to the larger events. He says the city of New Orleans is prepared, or better prepared, and more protected than it was a year ago, should this happen again.
We're also keeping tabs on pending litigation, with many of the victims filing lawsuits over all of this. Now, one of those targets the engineering firm Mott MacDonald that served as a security consultant. The city of New Orleans and contractor Hard Rock Construction are also named. Morris Bart's law firm is handling that lawsuit.
Well, Bart held a news conference earlier this week urging the city to do more to increase safety on Bourbon Street year-round. Lawyers say they could begin taking sworn testimony from victims and witnesses as soon as March. We'll be following the process of the lawsuit, and we'll be watching the incoming administration to see how Mayor-elect Helena Moreno addresses security in the French Quarter.
And thank you for watching this look back at the Bourbon Street Terror Attack. Stay with WWL Louisiana for the very latest updates.